Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to be doing some simple American home cooking using a recipe from a church cookbook. This is a potluck staple, King Ranch Casserole. If you've ever been to a cookout, potluck, really any kind of family gathering in Texas or Oklahoma, chances are you've had King Ranch Casserole, whether you knew what it was called or not. This is a perennial favorite. It's very simple to make, but it's kind of tasty and kind of unique, so I thought I would give it a try. One of the things you might notice right off the bat is that I am using a bag of Doritos for this. Now, I chose nacho cheese Doritos. The recipe just says 1 bag of Doritos. What happened a lot with older generations is that some people would use the word Dorito as sort of interchangeable for tortilla chip. A lot of these recipes will call for a bag of Doritos, and we look at them and think, ugh, Doritos in a casserole, that sounds awful. What they meant was tortilla chips, most likely. A lot of people have started using the nacho cheese Doritos in it, and you know what? I'm gonna go with it. I decided it would be more fun to use the nacho cheese, so here we are. The next ingredient for this casserole is 1 whole chicken, shredded. The recipe calls for you to boil it, pull the meat off the bones, and shred it. I bought a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store because I didn't feel like boiling a whole chicken. I just pulled the meat off the bones and I stuck it in my stand mixer with the whip attachments to shred the meat. That did a really good job. Next, we have 1 large onion chopped. I used yellow onion. That's what my mom always used. That's my go-to onion. The onion's gonna make me sneeze. Then we have 1 green pepper chopped. I'm pretty sure they mean bell pepper, even though they didn't state it. And you could probably switch out like a poblano or something milder for this if you wanted to. Spicier too if you wanted to kick things up a notch. I went with a red bell pepper because it was on sale for the same price as the green, and I decided I wanted a red pepper. And next we got 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder. I'm probably gonna amp this up a little bit to quite a lot. Next we have garlic to taste. This recipe doesn't say specifically what type of garlic. I'm pretty sure they mean garlic powder. It's one of those things that is just something you know from context. So if you are familiar with this sort of cooking, you know what they mean. It's just like the Doritos, the green pepper, you just sort of understand what they mean, even though they aren't explicit. And as time goes by, without that context, these recipes get distorted because people just don't know what they meant specifically, although it's easy even still to have a pretty good guess. So with all that said, I'm actually using fresh garlic instead of dried garlic because I like it better. Then salt to taste. I'm just gonna add a little bit of kosher salt. Next we have cream of chicken soup, cream of mushroom soup. I'm using Campbell's for both of those, of course. Then we have 1 small can of Ro-Tel tomatoes. Now Ro-Tel is a brand name, and I couldn't find it at my local grocery store. Mine's a little bit smaller of a jewel than some of the other ones. I have seen Ro-Tel tomatoes at other stores, so they're not impossible to find in Chicago, but they aren't like as much of a staple as they are, say, in Texas or Oklahoma. So I'm using salsa casera from Herdez. It's a pretty good substitute. It's probably tastier. So let's get into this. This is a very easy recipe. It's just mixing stuff together and then layering it in a casserole dish. Starting with step 1, boil and take chicken off the bone. I did that with my rotisserie chicken, so it is good to go. Reading step 2, I realized that I forgot to mention one of the ingredients. A pretty important ingredient is 1/2 pound of shredded cheese. This recipe would have meant shredded cheddar cheese, even though they didn't explicitly say that. You just know. I decided to go with shredded Chihuahua cheese with jalapeno in it, just because I think it's gonna be tastier. And then adding in all of the other ingredients into this and mixing it all together. Go the red pepper, the yellow onion, fresh garlic, chili powder, salt, salsa, cream of chicken, and cream of mushroom. All right, now I just layer the Doritos and the filling together and bake at 375 for 30 minutes. And you don't gotta be too froofy with placing the Doritos. Just get a fairly even layer and move on with your life. You also don't gotta go crazy with the layering if you don't want to. I just did 1 layer of Doritos in the bottom, a layer of filling, and the Doritos on top. I did not use anywhere near all of this filling. I only used half of it, so I'm gonna freeze this so I can use it in a future date. And I'm going to finish the top of this off with the remainder of the Chihuahua cheese I got. All right, so that's what it looks like before it goes into the oven, and it's actually already fully cooked. You know, there's nothing raw in here, but it's probably gonna be a lot tastier once all the cheese melts and everything. So I'm gonna put it in the oven, like I said, for 30 minutes at 375. Get away from my tea. Ooh, hot. King Ranch casserole. It's got that sort of Tex-Mex home cooking smell to it, which if you're not familiar with it, it's just sort of a corn chip, chili powder, slightly spicy smell wafting through the air. And it definitely smells delicious to me. I'm gonna try a piece, and I have a glass of sweet tea to go with it. Can't go wrong with that. All right, let's dig in and give this a try. Ooh, still a little hot. Ooh, the chicken comes through. There's a little bit of spice. I added the very spicy salsa and the Chihuahua cheese with jalapeno in it, but it's still just a very little bit of spice. You could definitely ramp that up more. I think dicing in a poblano or a jalapeno pepper into this could definitely heat it up a little bit. But it's still really good, and I recommend upping the chili powder in it too. I think that was a good addition. The chips don't really taste like nacho cheese Doritos anymore. They just taste like tortilla chips. The seasoning is just sort of melded into the casserole. It's really not as weird as I was thinking it might be. This is really good, but I would think of it as a special occasion dish rather than a weeknight supper sort of thing. If there had been a death in the family, or if I was at like a once-a-year picnic or something, I'd be happy to have this, but I couldn't eat it too much. I think the cream of chicken and cream of mushroom soup in there really add a lot of richness to it that would be too heavy for regular consumption. Americans' tastes are changing, and we're all eating less of these condensed soup casseroles than we used to, which is a good thing. We all need to eat better and try to take care of ourselves. But I think it is important to record these things for posterity and entertainment. So I'm very glad that I made this. I think there could be some modifications made to it to make it more of a weeknight dinner sort of thing. First of all, obviously don't go with the nacho cheese Doritos. Just use whatever brand of corn tortilla chip or homemade tortilla chip you want. Second, I would replace those condensed soups with maybe sour cream, like a low-fat sour cream, or even low-fat cottage cheese would be a good substitute for those condensed soups. It would beef up the protein a little bit, cut down on the richness, and I still think it would be super tasty. There is also an opportunity to really beef up the veggies in here. I'm wishing that I had another bell pepper and another onion cut up into it. This would be good with okra, corn. I mean, you could even add like pinto beans or something into it. Any of those Tex-Mex staples would be excellent. If any of y'all are familiar with King Ranch casserole, I would love to hear about it. If you've made it before, if you've eaten it, if you've seen it on the table and avoided it like the plague, any of that, I'd be super interested, especially if you know of any variations with any of these home recipes. I know there are a million different ways to make them. It'd be really fun to hear how you make it. If you have liked this video, please let me know by giving it a like. And if you have not already, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.